What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to Chuds BBQ, where today I'm going to show you how I made this. Delicious, smoky, tender, barky, fatty, amazing, Akaushi beef brisket. Coming up. So the first thing you want to do in order to cook an amazing, delicious brisket is start out with an amazing, delicious brisket. This is a Akaushi brisket from Heart Brand Beef. This is what we cook at Leroy & Lewis every weekend, and it truly is one of the best briskets I've ever eaten or cooked. The reason this brisket is so amazing is because it's Akaushi, which means it is a cross between Angus and Japanese Wagyu. So it's got a really nice, strong, beefy flavor to it, as well as having the really nice marbling and intramuscular fat that comes along with Wagyu. But it's also not too fatty, so it cooks up really nicely on the pit. The second most important step when cooking a brisket is having it properly trimmed, especially in Central Texas where we're all cooking the same cut of meat with similar rubs on similar style pits with the same wood. It's the little details that really separate the good from the great, and a good proper trim is one of those things. If you want to see how I trim my briskets, you can check out my video from last week in the upper corner right, and this is that very brisket. So now it's time to hit it with some rub and throw it on the pit. So just like the beef rib video and the pork butt video, there are many different ways you can season your brisket. A lot of people like to throw in garlic and spices or use slathers or this and that. But I'm of the opinion that simplicity is best when it comes to beef. Oftentimes slathers can kind of cook on and create a bit of a barrier and then start flaking off later in the cook. So if you ever have your bark start flaking off of your brisket, it might be because your slather was too thick. But today we're going to keep it real simple. Simplest brisket cook on the internet. We're going with the classic 2-part 16 mesh black pepper to 1-part kosher salt, and we are just gonna rub the hell right out of it. Again, because it's so pepper heavy, you can go pretty liberally without worrying about over salting it. And please, don't forget to season your sides. To this day, I still see people, even some top 10 barbecue restaurants, forgetting to season their sides. No bueno. All right, pick it up, shake off all the extra, and we've got a beautiful bark already. So I'm gonna put it on fatty end towards the fire. We're gonna cook this at about 275, 300 degrees, and we'll come back in a little bit. All right, temperature is looking good already. Now again, I'm gonna try and keep this cook as simple as possible. I'm not gonna use any water pans, any spritzes, no fancy slathers, no fancy rubs. Just gonna keep it real simple. Just let the meat kind of speak for itself. Because as long as you got some good cured wood, a lot of convection on a good smoker that you can burn a really clean fire with, and you got some really good meat, that's all you need. If you're cooking on a smaller cooker or like a ceramic grill or something like that, that's when you might want to get into the water pans and spritzes and stuff like that, because you're so close to the fire that you don't want anything to burn up. But on this big boy, should be a real easy time. So now all there's left to do is sit back, burn a clean fire, and enjoy the day. All right, so it's been about 8 hours. You may be able to tell by my dirty face, but I've been in the shop for the last few hours working on a new table, because a little behind the scenes action here. This table I'm working on is, in fact, just a cutting board on some milk crates. Very professional. So I'm building a new table that's gonna house this cutting board, have a cute little burner. You'll see it in a minute. Either way, let's check in on this brisket. All right, that's so cute. Shrunk up a lot. But bark is looking real nice. Fat is starting to render out. It's super crunchy bark, very nice. So I think it's time to wrap this up. So typically there are a few different types of wraps that you'll see. There's the full foil wrap, also known as the Texas crutch, full butcher paper wrap, which you see a lot of places doing nowadays, popularized by Aaron Franklin. And then there is the foil boat method, which is what we are known for at Leroy & Lewis. So if you follow me or Leroy & Lewis, you'll probably be pretty familiar with this method, but there's a lot of good advantages to it. So that's what we're gonna do today. And it starts off with a couple pieces of foil. Then you grab your cute little brisket, pop it down. Whew, that's hot. And basically, just gonna crinkle up around the edges, leaving the top completely exposed. So we did it at Friedman's back in the day. Now we do it at Leroy and Lewis. And there's a few other places around the country that do it as well this way. So that's what we're basically looking for. It's really nice because you can kind of tuck it around the tips of the lean to make sure that doesn't dry out and make sure all the edges don't get too crispy, but we're leaving the top exposed, which is going to give us a really extra crispy bark. It's going to help render down all this top fat, and most importantly, it's going to collect a bunch of juices in the bottom and all the fats, and it's going to help that lean cook from the inside, almost like a braise, but because it's so late in the cook, there's not too much moisture left in here. We're clocking in right around 175 degrees. But the best part about the boat is, if you do collect too much juices, you can always pour them out. So, back on the pit it goes. Maintain some temperatures and let this thing continue to cook. It's gonna get nice and juicy and extra crispy on top. All right, it is hour 10 on the dot, and this brisket is done. Looking real nice, got a really good bark on it, lots of smoke. Extra crispy, nice and pillowy. There's a few different ways you can tell that a brisket is done. First, I always poke on top and try and feel for the bark to be nice and crispy, but I'm really feeling for the fat to be nice and rendered. And that kind of comes with experience, but you can tell just by poking it that all the fat is rendered. You can also kind of try and break it open a little bit, and if the fat is looking nice and creamy like that, then you know it's good. But if it's kind of really milky and solid still, it needs to render for a bit longer. This boat has done its job wonderfully. You can see there's a lot of juices collecting in the bottom that have really helped cook the lean, because the lean runs the entire length and it's the toughest cut of the whole brisket to cook. So that extra fat and moisture collected at the bottom has really helped everything. But the real way you can tell if it's done is if you go right into the middle underneath and give it a poke. It's incredibly hot, but it should feel nice and tender. I often tell people that it should feel just like a raw brisket does. That amount of give to it. Sometimes you can feel the fibers starting to pull apart, but you don't want it to pull apart too much because this still needs to hold up under a 1/4 inch slice. So, with all that said, I'm pulling this off, and now it's time to give it a nice long rest. So now it's time to rest this brisket, and what a lot of barbecue joints around Texas and around the country won't tell you is that they rest their briskets overnight. Really low and slow, long rest, oftentimes in warmers that are holding anywhere from 140 to 180 degrees. And what that does is basically gives it a really long time for all that collagen to turn to gelatin, all that fat to continue rendering, the carryover cook to turn into a slow down rest and reabsorb all the juices and all of that good stuff that comes with brisket. The problem is it's really hard to do at home because I just spent all day cooking this thing and I really want to dive in. But to make sure it comes out perfect, I'm gonna rest it overnight and slice into it tomorrow for lunch. And for those of you keeping score at home, this is right at 200 degrees right now. It was at about 205 before I opened the lid and started shooting. But what I'm gonna do is let this rest down to about 160 degrees. Then I'm gonna put it in my oven on its lowest setting, which I believe is 170 degrees. All right, it is now the next day, and that brisket has been resting forever. So it's about time to slice into it. But first, let me show you my new table. So from this dirty old table with 2 milk crates and a cutting board on, I have now upgraded to this beautiful all steel construction Chud-made table. Still got the big old cutting board on there, butcher paper roll, not attached, so I can move it around. It's got this nice professional double burner on it, so I can cook outside without stinking up the house. Underneath, propane for said burner. Got all my fire tools down here, got my box, my gloves, and all that good stuff. A little trash can, but yeah, this is pretty cool. And it's unlockable caster, so I can move it around. So, that's the new Chuds BBQ setup. Very nice. Tell you what, the best part about building your own table is that you can build it to the perfect height for yourself. Very nice. All right, back to the brisket. So this here brisket has been sitting at 170 degrees overnight and is fully rested, and it feels so nice and tender. So let's pull this out. Ooh, so nice and tender. And look how small it is. This is a pro tip for anyone that's just getting into brisket. I know it's kind of hard to find, but if you can, find yourself a small brisket. It's a lot less hassle than cooking a gigantic brisket. I was at Walmart the other day and I saw they had a 25-pound brisket. Anyone's gonna have a hard time cooking that, especially the home cook. But just look at that bark. Undeniable. Super crunchy, not too flaky, nothing's really crisping off too much. And that's another thing. I've seen some people talking about how I put too much pepper on my meat in the comments. But the reality is, after it's been smoked for 10 hours, the pepper loses a lot of its really spicy, pungent notes, and you're left with a really roasty, delicious flavor. But most importantly, the roughness of it is what gives it a really nice crust and that bark that everyone's looking for. All right, when it comes to slicing a brisket, really not much to it. We've got the lean end from here to about here. If you notice in the trim video, I made that one little line. That divot is right here, so that'll let me know when to switch from cutting this way against the grain to this way against the grain, because muscles have grains going in totally different directions. I didn't cover too much about the anatomy of the brisket throughout this video because there's a lot of information out there on it already, but if you want me to do that, I can do that in another video. But to get started, not much to it. Just slice the end off and give it some beautiful slices. Let's check out this lean. Oh yeah, beautiful, nice and tender, holds up, pulls apart. Can't beat it. Also, listen to that bark. Getting that really nice crispy bark with this super tender meat. Whew. That's what it's all about. Again, I'm using my trusted red Dexter Russell bread knife, serrated. Link in description down below. The ultimate brisket knife. But let's look at that. That is some good looking lean. Nice fat rendering right there. Nice and juicy throughout here. Can't really beat that. And you know it's tender. Get a few more sections out of here. And this is where we find the ultimate brisket slice. Whoops. The half lean, half fatty, beautifully rendered, nice and juicy. Super crispy bark on there. Oh, can't go wrong. Holds up, pulls apart. Whew. I'd eat that. Hashtag love the lean. Now it's time to focus in on the fatty side. I really want to squeeze this. This one's for Yoni. All right. So starting on this end, this is where you're going to get the ultimate burn ends right here. As you can see, it's really thick on this side. I'm talking about this top muscle versus this side. So this is the side where you're going to get the ultimate Texas-style burn ends. So we're going to just take this and slice it off. And this is the best bite in the entire brisket right here. Super marbly, super barky, really tender. These are the Texas-style burn ends of everyone's dreams, especially because they're so crusty and it's got all that Wagyu intramuscular fat going on. These are spectacular. So just cut little bites out of that. And oftentimes you'll have a big chunk of fat or lean muscle hanging off the bottom of this, and that's that big decal of fat that I cut out in the trim video. And this is all that was left from that. Oftentimes you'll see people cutting that first slice, slicing that out, but not necessary on this. I gotta try this real quick. Oh my God. Again, we're going against the grain, so we're going a completely different direction. And this is the best cut on the fatty right there, that first slice. So marbled, so nice. And again, if I didn't take that decal fat out, there'd be a huge layer of fat right here, filling from this gap to this gap. So once it's all gone, all you're left with is the perfect fatty bite of brisket. So tender, so good. From there on out, just keep slicing, a little bit thicker on the fatty end, crunchy bark, tender lean, super moist. Can't beat it. I was pretty aggressive with the trim because I wanted to make sure that everything on here is edible. There's no part of this that I would throw away so far. So good. Ooh, look at that bark. What do you think, Brooke? You hungry?
It doesn't get better than that.
Ooh. Would you just look at it? Hey, luckiest dog in the world. Beep beep. Shake Brooke's hand. Do a kickflip. No? All right, guys, and that is my favorite method for how to cook a brisket. Super simple, real crunchy bark, super simple elements all the way through, but what you end up with is some super tender, super juicy, fall apart, crunchy bark beef. Again, huge shout out to Evan Leroy, Chris McGee, everyone from the Friedman's crew that helped develop this technique. And if you ever want to try this for yourself, feel free to swing by Leroy and Lewis on South Congress in Austin, Texas, where we're cooking Akaushi beef in this exact same fashion every Saturday and Sunday from 11 till sold out. But that being said, I really hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, give it a thumbs up, leave a comment, hit me up on Instagram at ChudsBBQ. Let me know what you want to see me cook next. If you want to see me do a paper wrap brisket or a full foil wrap or do some more experiments with brisket, let me know in the comments below. Sorry. Let me know in the comments below. But thank you so much for watching. Links for everything I use will be in the description down below. And until the next time I see you, please go cook something outside. Peace! All right, so just cooked that full. Where are you going?
We're going this way.
Oh, okay. So one of my good buddies just moved into the neighborhood, and he's right down the street. So we're gonna bring him this fully cooked, beautiful Akaushi brisket as a little welcome to the neighborhood gift. So, what do you have to say about that, Brooke?
Yum.
Hey, what's up, man?
How you doing, buddy?
How you doing?
Nice pepper.
Ooh, is this some brisket?
Just for you.
Thank you.